Good evening. I'd like to call this committee meeting of the whole to order on August 13, 2024. There will be an executive session following tonight's meeting to discuss legal issues. I see there's no residents here for public comment, so we will begin the meeting. And if it's okay with everyone, may we have a mayor, sir? Please speak first so they can get out of here and don't have to be part of our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning good evening to everybody. It's how long it's been a long day. So again, I'm Frank Lipinski. I'm president and CEO of the Westchester Capital Advisors Group, which is part of Ameriserv.
Sorry, please speak into the mic.
Sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So again, I'm Frank Lipinski and I'm the investment officer at the trust company that's been managing your monies going on 15 years. So if we go ahead and go to tab number 1. Take a look at the investment performance for the employee's pension for the first 6 months of the year. So if you take a look at the pie up in the left-hand corner, this is how the monies are allocated. You have at the end of June, 2.5 million in equity or the stock market, which is 63.5%. The fixed income, you had 1.4 million or 36%, and cash is around 0.5%, 18,000. So this account is set up as a balanced growth in income, which is how most pension plans are set up. If you take a look down the right-hand corner, we'll walk through the first 6 months, started the year at 3,900,000. Any money coming in versus any money leaving, withdrawals, we had a debt outflow of 239,000. The account made an investment dollar amount of 363,865. So this did really well for the first 6 months to end up at 4,025,000. And the percentage return that equates to that dollar amount is 9.65 before fees. Net of fees is 9.44%. And then the index, which is a comparable benchmark, did 9.32. So your account did very well for the first 6 months. Any questions on that?
Then do you rebalance?
There's different ways we rebalance. One is if your percentage in your stock exposure goes above 65%, then I will rebalance that down. It's a balance objective is normally 50-50, but we go 60-40. We allow 5% one way or the other. So if it goes above 65%, we'll rebalance for the equity. We will also rebalance if we're going to take out some investments and put new investments in. We could rebalance that way. So we watch it very closely. Next page over will give you a historical look at the account. If you look to the far right in the middle of the page, you'll see the inception. So this account started on 8/31 of 2009, which is denoted down in the legend at the very bottom. So back in August of 2009, the account had a value of $1,646,420. Total outflows over that time period was $1,238,428. The account earned in dollars over that time period $3,617,346. That was a 9.76% annualized return over the last approximately 15 years. Gross versus a net return of 9.47 and the index of 931. So it's done real well over that time period.
Which indexes are we comparing this to?
So I've been managing money for about 37 years now. We use the same indexes. We use the Merrill Lynch U.S. Treasury Bill Index for the money market. Bloomberg Barclays Intermediate Government Bond Index for the fixed income, and the S&P 500 for the equity. It's been that way for decades. So, go on to tab 2. We'll look at the other account, which is managed in a very similar fashion. We take a look at the pie chart. Again, you'll see up in the top left-hand corner, the equity was 7.8 million, which represented 63.5% in the stock market at the end of June. Fixed income was almost 4,500,000, which was 36.3%, and cash was at $27,611 or 0.2%. Down the right-hand corner, started out the year with 11,624,000. Net outflows of 321,422. The account earned 1,101,000 for the first 6 months to end up at 12,404,000. That was a 9.64% gross, net 943 versus the index at 932. And finally, the next page over. Take a look at the inception date. Again, this one started at the same time, 8/31/2009. At that time period, we start out with 3,914,000. Net outflows of 1,143,000. The account made in dollars over that time period, 9,633,000, a 9.68% annualized return, gross 940 net versus the index at 923. It's done well over time.
Mr. Lipinski, just the difference between the 9.68 and 9.4 on each of these is your fee, right?
Correct. Our fee, so we combine both of your accounts for fee purpose. And you're also tiered down that we've given you discounts and you tear down, it equates out to 0.36, 36 basis points. 100 basis points is 1%, and that's where we start at normally. So you have a very big discount out of 36 basis points.
Anyone else have questions? Well, thank you for managing our money so well.
On behalf of myself,
Everybody seemed happy.
sir, thank you very much for your business. We appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thanks for
gentlemen.
coming.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I'd just like to say I'm glad that you did add the other figure that shows what the performance is net of fees.
Yes.
Yes.
Time we put that in, though, so.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
They remembered.
Yes, I was waiting.
Good evening. Thank you. We can start the regular meeting now. Mr. DeCosta?
Yes, is there a manager's report, Mr. Abrams?
Thank you. Just reporting that I have communicated with the Planning Commission after discussions with the Planning and Zoning Committee and offered them some suggestions as they had requested additional work that they might be able to do to assist the borough. And I was scheduled to meet with the Forest Hills Community Alliance this week, actually today, but Ms. Dempsey is traveling and had some illness. So we are trying to reschedule for next week and see how we can get together and again, kind of combine all those efforts to keep Forest Hills moving forward, to paraphrase from Community Alliance.
Yes, I just wanted to elaborate on your discussions with the committee. Marcus and I have been in contact with them as well. They canceled their meeting in July since they didn't have any business to conduct, but I recommended that for this month, even if they don't have any business to conduct, that we meet with them and really start going through some of the items that Mr. Abrams suggested from the comprehensive plan and seeing where we could really get started. So I'm looking forward to it, and I think they're kind of poised to get started as well. Do you think it's appropriate to invite Forest Hills forward to any of those meetings since some of the topics intersect in some ways?
I would say Forest Hills Forward as the subgroup that's working on the community-based pieces, probably not. The Community Alliance, if they start looking at some of the business pieces, I definitely would like to see the Community Alliance from the CDC, Community Development Corporation aspect, interface with the Planning Commission so that they can figure out what some of the barriers are to getting businesses and driving Ardmore Boulevard and primarily Ardmore
Okay.
to more businesses. And then we can hopefully all collaborate to activate the street in a better way.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you. That's all I have to report, Madam President.
I have a comment about that.
Thank you, Mr. DeCosta.
Can I make a comment about that?
Oh,
What Joe-
Marcus, sorry.
Technically, it's a public
Yes,
meeting.
please.
Technically, it's a public meeting. We don't have to invite people to it, but if people show up, I mean, that's what they're right to do. You mean? It's not a closed meeting.
Right. I just didn't know if it made sense to deliberately invite them as a piece of what we're trying to do, but yeah. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. DeCosta. Let's move on to finance. Mr. Erpeldinger?
Yeah, pretty light today. We have a manager's report.
So we've already had the presentation from Ameriserve. I just wanted to let council know that tax collections at 96% of the budget at this point, and slightly ahead of last year's collections. And since we discussed last month, and it's continuing as we're actually getting ready to wrap up the season, but as of July 31st, the pool revenues versus expense are improved by about $9,000 over last year. Just to note, the pool as a whole, does not make money, but it's in a better financial position by 9,000. And finally, continuing to work with Siemens and with Wilson Engineering, who's our shared energy manager, to apply for some additional savings that they've identified for us. So we're all working together to get the data from Siemens so we can apply for things like votes on our LED lights that they put in through the other buildings and other pieces that were not originally identified. That concludes my report.
I have a comment about the pool. Usually, I think around October, we're getting like a detailed analysis, like incoming different revenues, how we expanded out of the pool. Like, because I think October gives you enough time to actually collect the data. Like September meeting is usually too quick after the pool shuts down. So I wonder if you knew that we typically get a detailed analysis in October.
I definitely expect to have it in October. I'd give it a 20% chance that I could have it in September.
Perfect.
I haven't quite looked to see what days our meetings are, but things are moving a little bit smoother, and Allison's able to get me things a little bit faster now, so it's possible.
Yeah, I think in the past she had to crunch some numbers manually. I think now it's a little bit more automatized. And I think for the committee reports, we have the Siemens bill. And I have a question about that to you, Seth. Like, at the last week, we heard that they have a plan to fix the pool air conditioning, but they haven't fixed it yet. So I wonder if we should maybe still withhold a portion of that money. But up to you.
So at this point, I'm recommending that we pay because the way the agreement's set up, it's as the work is done. We still have the ability, and I'm holding off on signing off on documents stating substantial completion. Bless you. So with that kind of in our pocket to make sure that everything is done correctly, which we didn't have those before, I'm more comfortable letting them go because there are other pieces. Obviously, we were holding back much more than the value of just the air conditioning units.
Okay, that makes sense.
Single 3-ton unit.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mayor Porco wanted to say something, I think.
I just had a quick question, and it's directed at Seth. Going back to your update, pool revenue, is that factoring in the cost of the computer system and network update that we did there, or is that just a comparison of operations like apples to apples from last year?
That's just the expenses versus operations for direct. The actual IT that we did was only a couple of $1,000s, and I absorbed that as the part of the administrative budget with the larger pieces we did.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that concludes finance. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're moving along fast. Thank you, Mr. Erpeldinger. Okay, we're going to have the committee of the whole. May we have the manager's update, please, Mr. Abrams?
Yes, Madam President. Just a reminder for anyone who hasn't already done so or isn't already in the process of, please get in touch with Consensus or let me know, and I will help you get in touch with Consensus to switch over the email. I sent out, we have 3 applicants for the Arts and Culture Advisory Council, Gail Harper, Phoebe Marshall, and Nick Smirker. in my email earlier this week, I sent out all three of their letters of interest and or emails. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, council's consent, we'll move that to next week's vote to approve them onto the committee.
Does anyone have any questions or comments then?
No,
Good.
That concludes my report.
We have a solicitor's report, Mr. Corbel.
Just real briefly, at your place tonight, you'll see a short memo about the building use policy and options as to where I think we landed. So that's there for everybody to take a look at, provide feedback. Secondly, there's also a sample of a draft bylaws for each of the updated councils, commissions, and committees. I had Seth just print one out and email you the rest because it's basically, they're all basically the same, right? There's not difference between them other than how many people are on. And there goes the fire alarm. Well, I guess that's the siren for outside, not the alarm in the building for anybody watching.
Stay seated, everyone.
And so that's there. I think if you could take a look at feedback and then we can punt it over to the individual committees for any input. It is very much tracking the actual ordinance changes, which there weren't many comments on. So I get much feedback from them, but I think throwing it their way makes good sense. And we can adopt it by resolution at any future council meeting. So again, doesn't have to be advertised. So no expense or pre-planning there. And then I do have a couple things, or I have one thing in an executive session on a legal matter to just bring everybody up to speed, but that's all I have tonight.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Abrams?
Just a comment, after reviewing Mr. Corbel's draft and his memo, Annette has actually updated our room use sign-in sheet, which has not been used for the past couple of years. That really works to clarify and make sure that somebody fills it out, that it's filled out ahead of time with the information, who's using it, if there's any third parties, other pieces. So we will continue to tweak that based on our final policy, but that will also be updated to go with it and make sure that we're using it.
Are there any other comments? Mr. DeCosta?
So I see in the policy here that the Westinghouse and pool lodges will be open to other groups. Have those groups been informed of that possibility now that, the groups that have been in question? And, or do we have to vote on that for the business meeting to then inform them?
I don't know. I think that the
Microphone,
Been informed. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm pretty sure that they have been informed, but I don't know for sure. I know that was the discussion that was had around where this would land. So, but it's out here now. So, and again, yes, we could adopt it at the business meeting next.
Mr. Bioki, your hand is up? Oh, I'm sorry. Who had their hand up first? Go ahead, Mr. Bacon.
I'm reformulating thoughts. Mr. Bayoki, please. Reformulating thoughts. Wonderful. No, I would suggest that we take the time. We've had this pending for quite some time. And I would suggest we take our time to look at it and thoroughly digest it and make sure we covered everything. I'm sure Mr. Corbel has taken it and done a thorough job of it, but there might be something that's still outstanding that will pop into somebody's head and we'll be regretting that we didn't take the time to thoroughly vet the whole thing before we move forward with it.
There are comments that I have in the draft for consideration. And also just to make sure everybody's clear, This is just a portion of the overall building use policy. Didn't put the entire policy in there, just the section that we're changing.
Mr. Bacon, did you reformulate?
Yes. All right. I have one specific question to this, but maybe before that, just for structure of everything. Is there any objection to us going through this together now, seeing that it's 7:25, and I don't think we have any further items? Then we can actually go through this. Folks watching can have the chance to understand what's going on. We can get all our questions just presumably fleshed out right here tonight.
I would prefer that we would get a chance to digest it, if that's okay. I don't know that I could read the whole thing and be prepared to start answering questions. Would you mind if we move this to next month and then we can have that discussion? Would that be under borough property? Would you suggest? Mr. Corbel?
Yeah, it would be, I think that's probably where it fits the best, there or option policy, one or the other.
Oh. Sorry, Mr. Lawrence, your hand is raised. I apologize.
Quite all right. I'd just like to support what you just said. I don't think you should be, or we should be trying to analyze something that all of us have just looked at for the first time in 5 minutes ago. I don't think that's appropriate. Thank you.
Mr. Bacon?
All right, I do have a specific question then, so we can understand context in this. And that refers to all the definitions of business hours. How are we defining business hours? Because there's several things that say groups may not arrive prior to the start of business hours, must vacate. Specific, the one I'm most concerned about is they must vacate the building no later than 15 minutes prior to the conclusion of business hours.
Indicate what number or letter you're looking at?
Yes,
Please,
the
thank you.
example that I'm looking at right now is in 3E, 3F. Yeah.
So that's just, those are applying to meetings held during the business day, which is defined as hours that the borough building is open. They change, it's not like 9 to 5 every day. Not specifically defined in here because we want the flex. Change our business hours as we need and not have to run through and change every policy, et cetera. But groups are still permitted to use it after hours as well. There's just a separate paragraph. If you are using it during the day, there is that requirement that Mr. Morse included about 15 minutes before or after. And so I just continued that. To me, that's really, an issue for you to discuss perhaps with Mr. Abrams, if that's what he's interested in. But I just left it the way it was. There's a carryover.
And to just further clarify, so that section is about the borough building specifically. So in later sections like F, where we're talking about the Westinghouse and pool lodges, when we're referring to designated business hours there, that would be like rental hours or something for those specific buildings, not like, again, the borough buildings. Okay, so separate business hours depending on the facility. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Lawrence, is your hand still up?
No, it's not.
Oh,
It's gone down.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank
Just
you.
want attention.
Uh,
I just want attention.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Madam President.
Yes, sir.
So
Mr.
question,
DaCosta.
just in the spirit of good faith here, I know that the one committee that we've been working with has been very anxious, given that we're in an election season and, they're doing a lot to prepare for the election. I know that we still want to officially approve this policy, but would the council be open, since this is a possibility, to approve usage of the Westinghouse or pool lodges sort of interim before it's officially approved, to allow them to meet, say, next month until it's approved?
I don't think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I'd support that idea of an interim unless we're extremely sure about changing some of the language here, because I think this
We don't understand it totally. I can't say that I do, neither does Mr. Bioki. What happens if we approve something and then make a change later? I just wouldn't want to get somebody's hopes up and disappoint them. We can wait another month. Is that correct? Mr. Erbaldinger, your hand is up, sir.
I mean, using the Westinghouse rack or the pool lodge or something like that is not the committee room anyway, so it's something different. So I'm supportive of as an interim idea.
Thank you. I still want to wait until next month when we get this voted in. Mr. Bacon,
Final question for me on this.
please.
Right, in the interest, again, of public transparency and everything, we're holding these memos right here. Who else gets to see this? Including like interested public parties, before next month? What's the standard on this right here?
That's for the solicitor to answer.
So I would say, I would say that, I'm so comfortable sitting.
Yeah.
I get
Forward.
lapel mics, yeah. No, I would say that this is still in draft form, and once we have a draft that we are comfortable with, that can be released to the public. Not even a draft like this is not a public record under the right. Once we get feedback and discuss it, I guess, at the committee meeting. Council voting meeting, it can certainly be finalized and
Steve, I lost you.
oh, I'll get closer. That I just said that once we finalize the language, we can make sure that it's available to those who would be interested in reading it before the council voting meeting next month.
Did you get all that, Mr. Erbaldinger?
Yes, but I have a comment. I think, again, just for be open about it, I think we need to give sufficient time. I think we can't say at the committee meeting, okay, that's our draft, and then vote on it the next week. I think there needs to be at least a month in between, which goes back to that have something interim, because I don't think we want to rush it, but we also have a need to do something. So I think we should have take it slower, but have an option to give them the Westinghouse rack, for example. And I think we can vote tonight about that. Just to have an interim solution, can we give them the Westinghouse rack?
We've already decided to wait until we get a chance to look at it.
Who is we?
The council, we're talking about it now.
Yes, but I don't
Just a
think,
minute, please. Mr. DeCosta has his hand up. He had it up before you, please. Thank you.
So I feel like this policy is different than the committee policies. Correct me if I'm wrong. That it doesn't necessarily deserve public comment. This is something that the council can decide on our own because it's a borough policy. Is that right, Mr. Corbel, or is it something that we need to open up to public comment?
I mean, it's an item that, as a business item, it would be open to public inspection prior to voting meeting, and we could take comments on it. Yes.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Again, to my knowledge, this is an outline of the process or the solution that group should be familiar with or expecting. There aren't any surprises in here to my knowledge. Other than, I think I did put in here that it's basically 12 times per year. So basically you have a meeting once a month, right? And then also if you're using it, any of these rooms for something other than just a general meeting, you're having social event, a fundraiser, a meet and greet, a party, et cetera, that you are then renting at the going rental rate, those activities. But 12 times a year, you can use either of the lodges for your.
you're kind of fading out again. Sorry.
Sorry, that would be sufficient. 12 meetings per year would be sufficient for those elected official groups.
The borough property meetings in 2 weeks. Suddenly we can wait 2 weeks for this. Or is there a rush?
Can
I'm sorry, do you have your hand up again,
Yes.
Mr. Erbaldinger?
Again, you said we decided not to give them the Westinghouse at the interim, but I haven't seen 4 votes. Can I just expect?
Nobody's calling for a vote.
I'm calling for a vote
Take a
now.
look at this.
No, just for the.
I don't
interim.
understand why you're continuing.
I'm asking
this.
for a vote to give the committee the Westinghouse on the interim basis until the policy is finalized. And that. do
I
we
have to say, my comment on that is, oh wait, Mr. Lawrence, do you have your hand up as well?
Yes, please. As I
This
said,
would
before.
be under your, committee, Mr. Lawrence. I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Okay. As I said before, we're just looking at this for the first time. To even approve it in an interim basis, I think is unwise and sends a signal. And I think you made a good point. Let's not get anyone's hopes up that this is going to be the final policy. And if there are problems with it that have legal implications, let's not open the door and then have to shut it, 2 or 3 weeks from now. So I think we should not. I think we should just give it time, look over it for 2 weeks and talk about it in committee. Let's do the right thing and do it carefully and not make exceptions just to, let's just stop. Thanks.
Have anything? Like,
Please here, if I may offer a compromise, I believe one of the committees that we're talking about normally.
I'm sorry, I can't hear
The
you.
committee that normally meets that probably would have an interest in starting to meet a little sooner, given the proximity to the general election. I believe meets on the 4th Tuesday of the month. So perhaps what we can do is digest the language as was recommended, which I don't think is a bad recommendation. But perhaps what we can do is, as I think as council president, what you can do is take a straw poll vote after people have had an opportunity to digest it. And people would maybe feel more comfortable with approving their use, assuming that this would pass anyways at the next committee meeting. So it's kind of like splitting the baby. It gives everybody on this council an opportunity to digest it and make sure they're comfortable. If issues would arise, there's nothing forcing the decision to give them the building for use in August. If there are no issues with the proposed language, then you would be able to give them the use of the building, knowing that it would pass in September. Just another thing to consider. And I think it addresses the concern over an ability to digest the language, but allows them to start entertaining and having guest speakers come in who are, looking for support, et cetera, which is the problem they're trying to solve for.
Does anyone else have anything to say? Mr. Bioki?
Thank you. So if we're actually looking for guest speakers to come in, that puts us in another category. Now we're talking about renting for a fee. So that's all the more reason why we should not be moving forward on this until we've digested it. And we've had time to look at all the different potential parameters. Is this going to be used as a membership meeting? Is it going to be used as a fundraiser meeting? Is it going to be used for some other purpose, not just for the one particular committee, but everyone that we're going to be dealing with in the future with this policy? So I think trying to do it for August is premature. Perhaps September makes more sense, but I think we need time again to go over it and digest it.
Mr. Bacon, you had your hand up?
Yes, I have a suggestion on this kind of, I think in the same vein, and I agree that August, we shouldn't be trying to get anything finalized for August. I understand people's concerns about moving too quickly. I just think we should aim to have this done barring any major concerns that people have in the September business meeting. And I just hope we can kind of aim at that as a reasonable timeline, unless something unexpected comes up.
And my suggestion is, after I've heard all of yours, is if we wait, I'm not sure if this will be under ops and policy or the borough property, but if we have a chance in 2 weeks to review this, could we agree then and then move forward and have the final vote at the business meeting? But then I don't know if this is legal. You know how we do this sometimes for approving a bill?
You can,
Mr. Corbel said we could do,
yes, you could ratify it, sure.
yeah, we better get it legal. Mr. Bioki, your hand is up.
Yes, if you do it as you suggested, then what was also suggested by Mr. Bacon was that we would all be sitting in the room to discuss what our concerns were, changes, et cetera, et cetera. We would not be able to do that at the business meeting. So I think pushing it to doing it at the business meeting would be too soon.
We're talking about the September business
Yeah.
meeting.
If we do, yeah, if we're doing it as either the Ops and Policy Committee or Borough Property, but I think it's Ops and Policy, yes, fine, then we can have a discussion. But I thought you were suggesting doing it at the business meeting.
Okay, so we're going to be meeting in 2 weeks, or whatever it is, September, the meeting is September 3rd for ops and policy and business. By then, everyone will have a chance to digest this. We will then have a meeting with public questions and answers. We can decide what we want to do then. We can ratify it at the business meeting, but then whatever we decide, we can proceed forward unless there's any snafus. Okay? Is your hand up still, Mr. Erdeldinger?
I just think it's a good compromise. I think there's an urgency to it. I like that we talk about it in 2 weeks and then we can ratify it on the spot if we find an agreement. And then I'm good with it. You know, I would just want to remind everyone, we have done it for 30+ years, having a Democratic Committee meeting in our building, in our old building, in our new building. So I just feel like we are, I don't know, there's some urgency to it, I think. And I'm happy with that 2 weeks. Thank you.
I just don't want to feel pressured tonight to make a decision on the spot before we've had a chance to thoroughly look at the document. Anybody else?
Yes, if
Mr.
it,
Bacon? I'm sorry. Mr. Bacon, I saw his hand up first, Mr. Lawrence.
This is just another clarifying question to make sure we're all leaving here on the same assumptions and understanding. It seems like one of the main nomenclature changes is using the term elected officials. I just want to make sure we're all assuming correctly that that includes both council and then party committees who are on the ballot and elected, such as the Democratic Committee, and if one were to be formed, the Republican Committee, for example. Is that my correct understanding?
That is the intent, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lawrence.
I was just going to suggest, if you think this would be helpful to speed things up during ops and policies, if people in the next 2 weeks have specific questions, sometimes rather technical questions like what's elected official mean, how's that defined? If they want to send those along to me and I can collate them, so maybe I can kind of speed up the process a little bit and get some answers to basic questions so we're not struggling that night. I'm happy to do that if you think that's helpful.
A lot of people are nodding their head, Mr. Lawrence. Please go ahead. Oh, Mr. Bioki.
Yeah, one more comment is that instead of just looking at this as a standalone document, we need to look at the whole document and how it integrates with that.
Will you be providing that to us, Mr. Corbel?
Yeah, we can send the original document along to everybody. Yes, Seth has it. I haven't looked at it from that perspective. That was sort of part B after we decide on what the document, this portion should look at and then integrate it therein. So I haven't done that, but the changes are minimal. I don't think that there would be much by way of impact, other than I think I included a comment, which is, do you want to pull this out of the building use policy and have it standalone for the lodges? So, but yes, I think that would be helpful.
I can put it together from Mr. Corbel's memo and the original document and distribute it out so everyone can see it in context.
Thank you, Mr. Abrams. Last call. I don't see hands up there. Okay, we're going to move on to the business report. Under A, actually, we had already done this, applied for Granite Cook Park. So that was just a repeat. Moving on to issues from other committees under public safety. The proposal by Chief Williams to purchase that should be a 2025 Ford Explorer hybrid. Mr. Abrams, did you have anything to report on that?
Yes, I spoke with Chief Williams and he did provide me with the quote, as President Martin stated, it's a 2025 hybrid in a CoStar's contract. The vehicle would be just over 49,000, and then it's approximately $20,000 in the upfitting fees, and he would be looking to then sell on Municipid one of the older gasoline only vehicles. So the total price probably be somewhere between $60,000 and $65,000 net, and I will be checking into the budget since I just received the numbers today to let council know if we have the funds for it or if we need to look to finance it.
Does anyone have any comments on that? Are we looking to do this? Mr. Erbaldinger?
Yeah, just for the manager's sake, we have basically 5 police cars and every year we buy one, but financing, we don't pay it all. We usually have like a third lease, but again, you can look into the budget, how you're comfortable. But most of the time we're leasing it over 3 years, I think.
Right, and Chief and I have discussed that. Right now, interest rates are quite high though. So if we have the cash, it would be, even though it wouldn't be considered interest, it would be a financing fee. It amounts to the same thing.
I totally agree.
So we're going to see if we can make it most cost effective to the borough.
I totally agree.
Then are we holding off from voting on this at the business meeting, or do we want to proceed?
We should proceed.
I believe that I will have the final info as far as the financial feasibility that council should be able to make a decision at next week's meeting.
Excellent. You'll have that on the business meeting agenda. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, number 2, Sumner Avenue, Mr. Bioki.
Thank you, President Martin. Yeah, this was brought up in April, but due to gas line repairs, we were waiting until the street was paved. But the Sumner Avenue has the same situation as Pacific because of the width, fire trucks being able to get down there and deploy. So what I'm recommending is that we do a 60-day trial period or give residents notice, and that parking will be restricted to one side of the road, and the same kind of parking layout that we've just completed with Pacific would be done. So there would be some parking alternate with the open space for the fire trucks, and then additional parking and so forth down the road. So if there's no objection to that, I would like to have that moved for a vote for the next meeting.
Mr. DeCross, yeah.
You said one side of the road, but isn't this new plan on Pacific? There's a couple other spaces, you know.
No,
to,
that- Yeah, that's what I was saying. The parking was originally, there was restricted parking on one side of the road. That's the way it was initially proposed.
Right. Mhm.
We now have experience with that, and I wasn't clear about that. Is that we would do the same thing, is to have some parking, an open space, some parking, and an open space, and so forth. So we wouldn't have to,
Back up. and-
totally restrict parking at this time.
So we're gonna emulate the model that we've ended up with on Pacific
Correct.
Avenue. And has a study been done then to see what that would look like on someone, or is that the
It's-
next step?
Well, yeah, we already did that. We have a drawing from our engineers, and it pretty much mimics what we've already done. There is a little bit of adjustment because there are some homes there that do have garages and driveways.
Right.
So
Mhm.
there will be some tweaking of that, but yeah.
I'll yield to Marcus first.
Yeah, I have a, lessons learned from Pacific. I think the residents felt like we kind of surprised them. So I wonder if we can actually, I think we have already a plan and we know how many spots we lose. I wonder if we can actually send a letter, including a plan to all the residents and saying, okay, that's what we're going to do. Currently, we have, I'm making up my numbers, we have 100 parking spots and we will lose 20 or whatever. So I wonder if we can actually proactively send a letter out to the residents with a plan, exactly what they're going to get, what they have now and what they're going to get, just to be more open and proactively avoid what we had with Pacific.
Yeah, that is a good suggestion. We did send out a letter to the Pacific residents, and we did tell them there was no parking. At the time, we felt that was the proper solution. As we went through the process, in retrospect, we realized that we could back off and provide the parking spaces. So including that in the proposed letter would probably help.
So we're mentioning as a trial period, but with those specific parking spots on the side that's getting the fire department, no parking cutouts, are we going to start with some sort of markings then?
No, we're going to give them a 2-week notice that we're going to be doing that, and then we're going to proceed based on, our experience and waiting for comments from the residents.
But my question is, when the no parking goes into effect on the trial, is it going to be entirely that other side of the street, no parking, or are we going to have like preliminary lines on the street for?
We're
the parking
going
spots?
to inform them as I just, Marcus and I just discussed, talk about there's going to be restricted parking. We're going to indicate how it's going to be done. We're going to give them, did I say 2 weeks? 2 months, 60 days notice that we're going to do that, and then we're going to proceed with that, barring any other comments or problems that might come up.
Well, to clarify,
We're not going to restrict the parking to no parking on that side totally. We're going to proceed when we implement it with the same parking as we've done on Pacific.
Can I help you? Yeah, I think he's just asking if those spots are gonna be marked clearly that are.
They
are-
will be marked, they will be marked as they are now on Pacific once the period is over.
We're talking about the temporary period where, so they know, we can't,
No.
we can't. do
We're
that.
able-
There's not going to
Let
be any
Mr.
temporary
Abrams do
period
it.
this time. Because the reason for the temporary period on Pacific is we were also changing it to one way. So the area of Sumner is already one way. It will be notify the residents with 60 days notice. we're going to be changing the parking. Here's your public comment period.
Uh-huh, okay.
Public
I
comment.
thought it was
Yeah.
60 days of a test period.
No, there's no test because the test was primarily because we're changing it from a two-way to a one-way.
Oh, so you're saying that the 60 days is just a
We're
warning?
just alerting them
Yeah.
that we are changing the parking pattern. And then we're going to proceed with the same similar parking pattern as we did with Pacific.
So on the day of the new pattern starting, is that the same day that we're putting down lines?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So just to be clear, so the new parking pattern is gonna go the entire length of Sumner from the 100 block. So south of, say, Decatur, all the way down to the boulevard, right?
Or down, we'd have to take a look at that. There's already up beyond, can't remember what street that is, or it's the alley, but
Rustic Alley.
oh, is it Rustic? Yeah, there's parking and it's on the opposite side of the street.
Only one side on the very lower piece already. So that wouldn't change.
So like in the 10 to 30 blocks, say, from, say, the Ardmore to Atlantic.
Yeah, I think that's one.
That would be converted, that's where my confusion is coming into play. So right now, that's a two-way. We're converting that to a one. Remains a two-way.
There's no change in the driving patterns of,
Okay, that was my concern,
Sumner,
because
no.
then you're gonna push a ton of traffic
No,
onto those surrounding areas.
No.
Okay,
the change will only be on the current one-way section of Sumner.
so that's the 100 block north of Atlantic up to.
sorry, I wasn't clear
Okay,
about that.
that's fine. I just want to make sure I understood it. Okay, thank you.
Who's, Mr. DeCross, has another,
I'm just a little concerned that there's not going to be a test period to make sure that whatever we decide on is going to work. I mean, wouldn't it make sense to?
It was already designed by the engineer and agreed to by the fire chief, that opening was
The way that
sufficient
it's
for the fire trucks.
Okay, all right.
So it's not like we're doing something totally different.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, we're going to mark these spots and then the truck can't get through.
And in fact, because of the driveways, there may be even greater spaces between.
Right, because there's more than Pacific, isn't there?
Yes.
anyone else?
I just want to
Mr.
suggest,
Bacon.
if anyone hasn't seen Pacific, that they go take a look at it, as it looks very, very nice and is extremely
Yes, I
clear.
looked at it today. You're right. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the last piece. Mr. Abrams, do we have any reports for the EAC or the Tree and Shrub Committee?
Unless there are reports from council members who've attended and have information, I do not, other than to state that for Tree and Shrub, I continue to be in regular contact with the chair of the Tree and Shrub and with Horhut regarding cuttings and prunings. We do have one situation of oak wilt that Horhut will be taking down one tree and providing the Tree and Shrub Committee with options regarding some trees that are close by that may or may not be affected. So they'll be looking at those financials and then making a recommendation to council at our next meeting.
If there's nothing else, that ends our meeting. Thank you.
Council
Stay
members,
for the
I'm going
executive
to,
session.
yep, I'm just going to end
Oh, there's
the recording and the live stream. So give me a moment, please.
Bit long.